In my videos documenting mine fires, people have often asked, is it dangerous consuming these gases and steams coming out of the ground? Well, I have a piece of equipment that's going to test that. This will test for combustible gases, O2 levels, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon monoxide. Something triggered it. This is another one of those adventures where I just discovered something that I had no idea even existed back here, and I found it accidentally just by exploring an area nearby. And I can almost guarantee if I stick the camera close, it's probably going to fog up the camera. Yep. Well, I'm going to get my gear put away. Oh, Jesus! Holy crap. When you hear the word mine fire, what's the first place that usually comes to mind? For most people, that is Centralia, Pennsylvania, the town made famous for Silent Hill and the underground mine fire. But as we've learned on my channel, there's other lesser known towns that are not only burning underground, but were pretty much erased through eminent domain. Here in 2025, the fire still burns underneath Laurel, Pennsylvania. And today, we're going to use some of my equipment to get some readings on the gases coming up out of the ground. So if you'd like to check this out as well, all you need to do is come along with me. Now, this is not my first video filming the underground mine fire here in Laurel, Pennsylvania, but it is my first one for 2025. And I came back for a few different reasons, namely to give you an update on how things are still actively burning underground here. Number two, I did obtain some new equipment which can allow us to test the gases and steam coming out of the ground. And three, most importantly for me, I actually made some new discoveries doing research on this place. While I went back on the older maps, I discovered that a rail line actually came through this town, and there are remnants of it today. On top of that, on that same older map, not too far from where the rail bed used to be, there was a building back here. I'm going to see if we could try to find the remnants of that. So we got a fun-filled day, and despite it being breezy and in the 20s, it's actually quite nice right here. This rock is nice and warm, and I'm getting the nice heat off the steam coming out of the ground. If you're curious how many areas we have to check out, well, besides this one right here, there is this one, that one, and that one. So we have several steam vents and fissures back here in this area, spread out over a decent area, but all within walking distance. And one of the areas is actually one I've been really meaning to get closer to because it's one of the more powerful, larger steam vents or fissures. And it's always surrounded by thick, prickly material. So I did bring a machete to try to hack my way through and get a closer look at that. But without wasting more time, let's get geared up. Let's see if we can find the building remnants that are back here, show you the old rail line, and then we're going to continue on showing you a variety of these steam vents. And when we get to one of the more stronger ones, we will pull out my equipment and test the gases and the readings of what's coming out of the ground. Now, in case you're wondering, how do you find these steam vents and fissures if you come to this location, Centralia, or any location with an underground mine fire? Well, there's a few different methods. Number one, you can use technology. You can use a thermal gun to scan the ground and look for heat signatures. Any areas that are hotter than the surrounding area or ambient temperature is going to be a telltale sign that the fire is somewhere beneath the ground there. If you do come after it rains, the rain cools the ground, steam will be more prevalent. Probably the easiest time though, or easiest way, is to come either during the winter like now, when the temperatures are colder, and especially after a snowfall. Because when it snows, well, wherever there is steam vents or fissures, there'll be no snow in those areas. It will be bare ground because the heat will melt the snow. So those are the easiest ways to find steam vents or fissures if you do come to an underground mine fire area. I'm going to show you the image on the map that I found, and this is really a shot in the dark, but I think I did remember seeing somewhere else that there is remnants back here of a building. Now this building looks like it is isolated, and it's not terribly far from the rail line, but it's not next to it. It is kind of off on its own, so I don't know if it was mine related or railroad related, but it should be somewhere in this area because we did our intro right back there. We're sitting by the steam vents, and the rail line is down this direction, not terribly far, which means the building should be somewhere over here. Well, I think I may have possibly found it. Looking through the trees, there is a man-made, I believe that's a wall. Do you see it there? I think we found it. Like I said, I saw a picture of this somewhere. I can't remember if it was Facebook or a website, but I did see pictures of an old building or remnants of it. And yes, this is definitely what it was. So this wall right here is leaning. I will stand in front of it, give you a size comparison to me. And the main building part is completely gone, as it's all a pile of debris here now. But this would have been like an inside wall right here. This would be inside the building. There's the back wall and the other wall. So the front half and most of that right side wall is completely gone now. Not made out of concrete. It is all stone with some mortar. It dates it probably to the 1800s, I'd imagine. With all this buildup of material, we can't see the true ground or floor, so won't be able to get any clues there, but we will walk around the back side of it. Height-wise, though, I would say, standing in front of it, looking up, probably about 10, 12 feet tall at the highest portion there. So, based on the proximity of the town and the railroad, and I am falling and tripping here. Sorry about that. Based on the proximity of this building from the town of Laurel when it was occupied and an active town, and the proximity to the railroad, what do you think this could have been used for? As far as I could tell, there was no branch lines or spurs or anything coming to this building. If anything, just road access, vehicle access. But I really had the slightest idea as to what this could have been used for. But it was well constructed. Given how old it is, it's holding up pretty well, even though it is exposed to the elements. Slowly deteriorating from the top down, but again, holding up pretty well for a building that's probably well over 100 years old. Oh, boy, am I glad I decided to come around back and investigate this. We just hit something even more interesting than what we already found. You ready to see this? Look at that. We have a type of tunnel. I don't know what the heck I just found, but I'm excited and it put a smile on my face. I'm gonna go in there ahead of you, investigate it. I have my flashlight. We'll see if it's doable and safe. If so, I'll come back and get you and we'll go through it together. Now, this is really cool. On the top here, this is brick lined. The bricks are not laying flat, they're on their side like that. And they're kind of forming an arch. It's like it's a combination of brick and stone. There's not a ton of earth above it, maybe 2 feet at the most. But as we come inside, could definitely stand straight up. It's a big curve right here. I do hear my reverberation echo, so it is pretty solid. I don't really want to bang on the roof just in case, but let's take a closer look here. There's an opening right here. Let me grab you guys, show you, maybe you can make heads or tails of what we're checking out here. All right, so working from the outside in, it's going to show you the earth on top of it. Then it works down to a top brick layer. And as you can see, there's multiple layers of brick. Now to the left here, there is an opening going right outside. I don't think that's supposed to be there. Looks like it did break away all the rubbles laying here on the ground. As we come further in, have an opening right here, which does look intentional, I believe. I should say intentionally carved away. Actually goes up quite a ways. It's like maybe somebody who could have been digging or searching for something. Just dirt and brick in there. You can see the curvature of the top. All brick. This is looking back now. Like I said, I'm able to stand straight up here. I have a couple inches of clearance over my head, but there is that buildup of material. So we're gonna rise as we walk in. And I don't really want to be hunched over going back there. We can see everything from here. So just to kind of point out a few things. Looks like possibly an animal carcass right there. All the inside here is a black soot color, which leads me to believe that either people lit fires in here on their own, like for a party spot or camping, or this was used back in the day for fire. And there's those metal pieces coming out of the ground. There's 4 of them there, and a bracket hanging out at the top. And this little inset, this goes in about a foot from the rest of the wall here, so it is like a little cove or cavity right there. I really don't know what to make of it. Fire of some sort is the only thing that comes to mind, whether it be for steam or a boiler or heat. Oh, here's another bracket right here too. So there were 2 brackets. Looks like something could have been attached to them, possibly hanging. We'll go to the other side too on the outside and look to see if there's any evidence over there. There's another bracket over there as well. So 3 brackets. Little ledge right here as well. And this is completely new to me. I knew there was a good chance of finding the building remains. I had no idea, not a clue, that this existed. And I am glad I found it. That's why I come back to the areas more than once. You never know what you're going to find unless you keep searching, keep researching, and exploring. And this just proved my point. This was one heck of a find, and this is kind of deviating away from the mine fire, but it's still history, still related to the area, and definitely worth documenting. Such a cool find. I don't know for certain what it is, but hopefully you guys watching, if you have any ideas based on what I showed you and shared, by all means, leave your feedback and input down below in the comment section. We're now on the back side of the opening. It's just over there, going in that direction. So looking at it from the side profile, just a lot of large blocks here, some brick. I don't want to stand on top. I don't want to put any additional weight on it to kind of help preserve it. I don't know how intact it is, but I don't want to risk ruining it, so I'm not going to get directly on top of it. Just a lot of exposed areas. And the other opening should be just over there. It's gonna be hard to see, but basically right there is the other opening. It's really thick over here. Not worth walking over to, but just the opening is exposed and it's all kind of backfilled in front of it. And to put into orientation, this is behind the building remnants and ruins that we found initially. So when I said I'm gonna go up behind the building, this is behind the building. So location number 1 that we found on the old map, I could check that box, but the area behind it was a bonus find of a bonus find. Now we're gonna walk up this trail, which looks like it's an old road, and off to the left somewhere should be remnants of the rail line. I don't think the tracks are in place, but there is a clear-cut rail bed. So if I go over to the left, less than 100 yards, probably closer to 50 yards, we should come to what appears to be another trail, and that should be the rail bed itself. I'm not sure what the terrain is like further down, so I'm gonna make a left here. There are some little hills, ridges, and some ravines But if we do bypass those, this should take us directly to where we want to go. Well, it's quite a bit down lower from where I am, but we found the old rail line. I'm going to safely make my way down there, and we'll walk a section of it back towards where we're heading, just to show you what it looks like today. We successfully scaled down that embankment here, and I'm now standing on the right-of-way of the old rail line. Continues off for quite a ways in that direction, heading north, and then looking south is the direction we're going to be heading. Now, thanks to the help once again of my rail guide app, I was able to confirm this was the CNJ, Central Railroad of New Jersey line. Also was operated by the LNS, Lehigh and Susquehanna Railway. I believe that might be a subsidiary of CNJ. So this line came right through Laurel Run, Pennsylvania, just above Georgetown to the left, and just before Devil's Elbow up there to the right. It went right across what is now Northampton Street. I had no idea a rail line even came through here on my previous visits. It wasn't until I was looking at my older maps that I saw a clear line going through the town. I'm like, wait, that's not a road, what is that? Pulled up the rail guide app. We had solid confirmation that this was a rail line. I don't know when it first started, don't know when it was last used. If I was to guesstimate and throw out dates, I would say it was last used in maybe the 60s or 70s at the latest. May have stopped earlier than then, may have went later. Again, anyone with knowledge, feel free to share it down below. There's no remnants of it today, other than maybe a couple ties here or there. If you're lucky, you might find a plate or a spike, but the rails are completely gone. But we're gonna walk back in this direction, heading back towards the steam vents and fissures to now document those and focus on the main reason we came here is to see what's in those gases and see how dangerous they are. Just to put things in a better perspective for you, the image I'm showing you shows you the CNJ line coming through here, and where the arrow's pointing to right now is where we started today's video, sitting right by those steam vents and fissures. So that shows the proximity and location from each other of the mine vents, the building ruins, which are not far from there, and the rail line itself. Just backtrack, the rail line is down there. It does keep going right out towards Northampton Street. And I'm thinking if there is enough interest from you guys, I may come back this spring or summer on an e-bike and follow that line to see how far we could go and to see if there is anything hiding back there that may be related to the old railroad days. If that's something you think you'd like to see, then let me know down below. Right now, back where we started today's video, and we're just gonna briefly check out these vents since we've already been here. You can see there are a few of them. Got one coming out right there. Closer you get to it, obviously the warmer it gets and the more saturated the ground is from the moisture. That one right there. And this one right here. I do apologize if I am winded. I actually had to climb up a decent ascent from the rail line, which is down there a bit of a ways, so just get my breath back now. Now with my thermal gun, which I will link down below in the description if you want to get more information or to get one for yourself, there's no hood on it, so you can't really see the screen. All you see is a reflection, but I can take still images. So I'm going to capture some images as we're here doing this, and you can see what the gun sees. So it's showing right now high temperature of about 123 of that crevice right there. And the way it looks on the imaging, it's glowing yellow. It's almost like a volcano or lava beneath the surface. As I talked about earlier, these rocks are warm compared to the rest of the ground. This left rock here is glowing pretty good. The rock itself has a temperature of about 73. The hot spot in between it though is around 113, 114. So the heat source is coming out right between them, but there's enough radiant heat to make that rock nice and warm. And again, if there was snowfall here, this area would obviously have no snow. As we look over, there is a little pocket of heat coming out right there, steam, and a larger one on that embankment right there. So we're gonna head up there, check that out, get a couple readings, and then we're gonna make our way back towards Northampton Street, where there are some more larger, more prevalent fissures and vents. Looks like we got a pretty good one right here. Good amount of steam coming out. Oh, I can actually feel the heat from here. And in case you're wondering if there's a smell, there is. It's a cross between a musty mildew odor and sulfur or rotten eggs. Often what it smells like down in the mines too, but up on the surface, you can smell it. Let's see here. On the gun, so it's like a hot spot of like in the 90s. We're not getting the direct source. So it's fairly warm compared to the atmosphere. Over here, closer to 100, a little bit to the right is where I'm showing you right now. That image is around 104, so a little hot spot right here. But there is more steam coming out on the other side here. And if you can't tell, this is a big mound of ash. This is burned up material. So this is the byproduct of the coal being burned. And it's just a big mountain of ash. But like I said, this is a kind of a general hot spot. There are numerous fissures and vents on this mountain of material. And I can almost guarantee if I stick the camera close, it's probably going to fog up the camera. Yep. So that right there, oh, that's a hot one. 136 degrees. Now, it's not hot enough to burn you. Boiling, I believe, is 212. But if you kept your hand there long enough, it would be plenty warm. And it's also a good heat source if you want to warm up for a bit. If you were stranded out here, had no gloves or anything like that, you could certainly defrost your fingers and toes, warm up, but you don't want to spend too much time there. But if you are out in the open and don't have it enclosed in like a tent or something like that, it would be perfectly fine. There's even other areas too where there's not really much steam coming out, but the ground is still warm. It's in the 70s on this whole pile right here. Even where I'm standing right here, this material is around 60 degrees. Again, it's in the upper 20s today. Sun does play a small part, but not enough to warm it up that much. This is the residual heat from underground that's heating up this entire mound of material. I'm gonna grab my backpack. We'll continue moving. I'm gonna keep the thermal gun out as I will scan as we go. I do have another piece of equipment in my backpack that's actually brand new to me. I haven't actually officially used it on location or in a video, so I'm gonna be debuting that today a little bit later on. But we're gonna head north on this old trail road here. There's a spot along the ways we're gonna check out, and then we're gonna make it to a more easier found, more well-known, more documented fissure where I'll pull off that tool. And from there, we're gonna change location to the other side of the road and check out some pipes and the larger fissures and vents coming out of a thick, prickly area. So that's still to come. Shady areas here, there's still snow on the ground, which tells you what? There's no fire beneath us here. Otherwise, it would be bare and exposed. The only places there's no snow here is where the sun's able to hit the ground. But just up here, not far from where we just came from, is our next heat source. I can actually see it through the trees. Right there, straight ahead of us. May not be showing up on camera, but there are two areas of steam coming out. But I want to stop here to show you this ground, which is discolored and burned out, because this is an area where the fire burned close to the surface and it basically killed everything on it as far as vegetation, and any coal turned to ash. So we have a mixture of materials here. And honestly, this ground feels pretty warm here. Let me scan and see. It's showing the ground in the 30s to around 40. That's just, I think, from the sun. Highest is 47 though. It just feels warmer over here, probably because of the sun itself. But this is a neat area though. You got different discolorations, some bare patches, some patches of vegetation. But this just shows you that the fire did burn close to the surface here. There must have been a vein of coal under here, and it burned up right to the top, leaving this bare exposed ground. But up here though, on this other embankment or little ridge, is where we're going to find two more fissures and or vents. We just came from over there. On this side of this embankment here is our next little vent pocket, full of moisture around it. As I scan this one's a nice 98, 99 degrees. So we were just on the other side of this mound, showing you that pocket there. But on the face of this side, we have multiple vents. So on the right-hand side here, 102 is the hottest, which is basically right around that area there. Up near the top, 89 degrees. And then over there, around 88 degrees. So 80s, near 90, and then again over 100 right here. So this whole side is warm and glowing. Anywhere you point the gun, it does show heat signatures, so I will take a picture of that just to give you a general look, as it's basically one glowing mound. And I'm standing on more burned material. This is more burned out ash. And I just spotted another little vent right there. Enough of these small little baby vents. I want to get to the bigger ones and test my new piece of equipment. Before we do that though, for those of you who are not aware of this location or haven't seen my previous videos, I do want to give you just some brief highlights and information about this location. December 1915, the fire started by a miner leaving his carbide lamp burning on a timber inside the coal mine. Attempts to extinguish it lasted through to 1957, when officials deemed that the fire was out. So it did burn from 1915 to 1957. And just 9 years later, 1966, it was discovered that it was still burning. And in 1973, they stated once again, the fire is out. Well, as we see today, 2025, the fire still burns. Much of Laurel Run is gone. The only thing that's still here is Laurel Run Estates up higher up, a little development there. And Georgetown down below was not affected. But 850 people were relocated in the 1960s through eminent domain, and the town was razed. There's not really anything left of it today other than Northampton Street, which is still an active used road. And there are one or two areas where you can see the old streets and the old properties, which I have showed before, but I will briefly show you them later. So that's the basic brief back history of the Laurel Run mine fire. But of course, you're welcome to do your own research if you want to find out more. Now this is what I'm talking about. This is one of the fissures that billows out quite a bit of steam and smoke. Before we test the gases, let's just do a temperature reading here. So this rock, the large rock here, is fairly warm. It's in the 50s. It's a good sized rock too. Hot spot is obviously down there, which is showing near 130 degrees. So this is one of the hotter ones that we have come across so far. You could just feel the heat radiating out of it. It's also super damp and a lot of moisture here, then even up to the surface. So when it's really cold out, this whole area would be frozen as the steam is warm and then freezes in the atmosphere and freezes everything it touches. So it is warm enough right now, so it's not doing that, but everything that is damp and moist here would be frozen if it was, say, about 10 to 15 degrees colder. Now, what I have here in this case, I've never used before on location. I never tried this before with an underground mine fire. I honestly don't know what kind of readings, if anything, we're gonna get, but I think we'll get something. This will detect low oxygen, carbon monoxide, H2S, which is hydrogen sulfide, and LEL, which is low explosive limit for combustible gases. Powering it on, it's gonna do a startup sequence, LED check, shock check, audio check. So it's ready to go. So just to show you on camera what the readout looks like. So I know there's a reflection, but basically top left is EX for combustible gases. Top right is O2 for oxygen, which is showing 20.9% volume. Bottom left is H2S, hydrogen sulfide. Bottom right is CO, carbon monoxide. Everything is reading 0, except for obviously the O2 oxygen. In my previous videos, people have often asked, how dangerous are these gases and fumes and steam coming out of these fissures and vents? Well, let's find out right now. I'm gonna stick this down here and see if anything does read. Okay, we are low oxygen. Let's try that again. It's really warm down here. Low oxygen got down to, it's gonna keep going off until it gets proper oxygen. This alarm goes off at 19.5. It got down to 17% volume down there. So obviously not suitable for living conditions or for breathing even. Now here directly in the path of the steam, obviously this is not combustible gas, so I don't expect it to send that off. If anything, maybe H2S or carbon monoxide, but we are directly in the path of the steam in the vent here. And yeah, even right here, it's lowering the oxygen down to 18%. Where I'm standing, as long as I'm not directly in it, I'm perfectly fine. If I was to get close to it and say put like a blanket over me, obviously you're gonna warm up significantly, but you're gonna run out of oxygen. This is not suitable for long-term exposure, but it does get immediately diluted by the atmosphere. So even though it's passing by me right now, there's no harm, no concern. There's no dangerous gases coming out of here except for lack of oxygen. It's just consuming the oxygen around it. So that is interesting. I am going to try this out at one other location where there's even a larger, stronger fissure, and we'll see if we get similar readings. But just to confirm one more time, if we stick it down here in the heat source, give it a couple seconds to read, it should start going off. And there it is. Down to 18, low 18%. I can't do any screenshots on this to show you that. I can only read it off to you in real time, but everything else is reading 0. So that's kind of good news. The only major concern is lack of oxygen and the smell. Again, it's a musty, a spoiled, rotten egg smell coming out of here. So it's not pleasant, but again, if you were in a life or death situation and you were freezing to death, you could certainly warm up here for a minute or so at a time. Give yourself a break, get some oxygen, come back, warm up again. But you would never want to be enclosed in that, like say in a tent or a blanket or a tarp. Even though you'll be toasty warm, you are going to be subject to low oxygen levels, which ultimately will cause you to faint, pass out, and possibly even worse. I did mention earlier about some residential streets still existing from when the town was erased. Well, just off the right of this road, we have one of them right here. I did walk this before. I'll take a brief walk up there and show you. There are some foundations. You can see where properties used to be. But this is one of these side residential streets in the heart of Laurel Run, Pennsylvania. You can see the old macadam blacktop for the road. Not too easy to see here. It is pretty thick and overgrown, reclaimed by nature. But further up, there will be a few distinguishing things identifying that properties were here. And actually here's something right here. It's a piece of block there. Looks like maybe possibly sidewalk. There's a good chance it could have been a home right there. In case you're curious too, this is public land. You are allowed to be here. All the areas we're going to is open to the public. There's just no hunting allowed. But again, just use your imagination. Try to envision this being a road lined with homes on both sides. It's really hard to imagine. If there wasn't the old photos from back in the day showing what it used to look like, you'd have a hard time envisioning what was here. A little bit more evidence higher up, you can see an old wall right there. Stone wall, could have been a property boundary. And over here, there's numerous little impressions in the ground. Most likely where the homes would have sat. You have to remember that this is so far beyond the time that this happened that you'd be surprised to find anything left. Even Centralia, which happened in more recent times compared to this, has more to see, like steps, sidewalks, some foundations. But here it is almost completely extinct. Oh, look at this. Teddy bear covered in some nature's carpet. Yeah, other than just a few depressions, I don't see much. That wall, that's about it. This macadam road is basically the only telltale sign that we're on a street. But as I was walking up here, I was just thinking to myself, I can only imagine the thoughts that went through the family's minds when they were told your town is basically on fire, even though they claimed more than once that it was extinguished. The town's on fire, you have to evacuate, your home is going to be demolished, and you're going to have to start over somewhere else. I can only imagine how hard that would have been, especially on families with newborns or a lot of kids. And I would imagine too, I don't know if these were homes built by the coal companies or if they were built by the homeowners, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the homes that were lived in were built by the people that lived in them. And now they're just memories. It is a sad situation when you really stop and think about it. Now in modern day, it's more fascinating than anything else. And people often ask too in previous videos, is that the steam you see coming out of the ground, is that actually steam or is it smoke? Because when you think of fire, you think of smoke. Well, without any certainty, I can only tell you what I experience. Number one is I don't smell smoke like your traditional fire. I just don't smell that. The smells are musty, mildew, rotten egg, sulfur smell. But you have to keep in mind, underground is a wet environment. When it rains or even snow melts, moisture and water is constantly working its way down Hence why mines had to be pumped out 24/7 for the miners to operate. There's always water underground. So when the fire is burning, any of that water that is near the exposed fire is turning to condensation and leaving out the earth through vapor. That's the best way I could explain it. I'm sure there's a more scientific way, but that is pretty much what's happening. It is primarily steam coming out of the ground, and it's from the underground moisture that the fire and the heat is burning off, and it's venting through those fissures. Welcome to our next rather familiar area, a place I had documented before. This enclosed, fenced-off area, which is open. It's always been open. And there are 2 steam vents coming out of the ground. There's also 2 behind you on the other side, one of which may have a tiny bit of steam coming out, but they're almost buried by material. These ones are exposed. So I'm just going to get some quick readings here with the temperature gun. They both had about an equal amount of steam coming out, but not a whole lot. The ground directly below it, the spout, is basically bare and exposed. This one does have some nature's carpet here. But I'm going to take a picture showing you the pipe is glowing. The pipe is roughly 75 degrees to 80 degrees. And then the steam coming out, let's see here. So the steam's coming out and basically rising up. So the ground itself is only around 43 degrees, not all that warm. Most of the heat is escaping into the atmosphere. So the pipe itself is pretty much the hottest object here. Let's check this one. This is actually a pretty cool image though. It's glowing really nice and bright. The pipe itself is around 78 degrees. Hottest point of the pipe is around 82 degrees. So it's warm. It's not hot. The ground itself is around 50 to 55 degrees, a bit warmer here. And to touch it, it's warm. It actually feels really nice. It's not hot by any means. You can't fry an egg on it. But this was basically drilled and inserted into the ground back at some point to monitor the mine fire, to get readings. A lot of times, especially in Centralia, they drilled boreholes where the pipes are coming down and there's a cap on top. When you lift up the cap, there's a thermocoupler that you plug in a device to, and it'll give you readings from a probe that's down in the earth. I don't know if they have those here. All I've ever come across are these vents, which I'm sure they could get some type of reading from, but it's more or less confirmation that the fire is still burning. The heat and the steam is making its way over here. This is probably one of the closer parts, maybe not, probably about halfway point to Laurel Run Estates, which is further up the road here. That and where we were earlier by that big mound of material that's burned ash, that's probably the same distance. But behind here, there's a little vent, but further back is the bigger one. And I brought my machete. We're gonna try to hack our way through there and get our first time look up close at that fissure. It's actually not as bad as I remember. A lot of the growth is down because of the winter time. Now this is actually pretty sharp, but it's not cutting through this very easily. Actually, it looks like somebody may have actually already carved a path here, so I'm just going to open it up a little bit. Getting closer. There's actually a lot of icicles around here. It's doing what I was explaining before. When the steam comes out and it reaches the cold atmosphere, it freezes on spot. And that's what we have right here. I'm going to try to not disturb that so I can show you guys up close. All right, I got a pretty good path made here. We can easily make it through. It's pretty impressive. I'm going to see if I could get closer to that one too, because there are 2 of them here. But the one thing I'm noticing is that this ground is actually rather dangerous if you're not paying attention. There are a lot of crevices and holes and openings where your foot could get lodged in, easily twist an ankle, or if you're going too fast and lose your momentum, maybe even break a foot. All right, this one, I'll be here all day hacking through that. This material, this green, spiky, thorny material, does not cut easily with this machete. Now, the moment, I don't know if anyone else has been waiting for, but I've been waiting for. I'm probably more excited about this than anyone else. Just because I've seen this area so many times, I've never seen it with my own two eyes up close. So again, this is the material we had to hack through. It does not cut easily. And here's a close look at those ice formations. Or as my viewers have dubbed it, nature's frozen tears. It's a pretty appropriate name. You guys came up with a good one there. Now, surrounding this is just that thorny, prickly material. But what we have here, I'm going to actually get over there, which will give you a better visual and better lighting. All right, we're in a good spot now. So I'm going to slowly pan down and show you what is before us. We have basically a pretty large fissure opened right up, large enough for someone to fall into. And the true bottom is unknown because it is partially filled up with material and debris. But obviously, that steam and heat is coming from somewhere. I don't think you would get swallowed up by it, but I think you would definitely need help getting out. You'd probably get your feet wedged in there, and it would require some effort to escape as the sides are all wet and saturated and would probably just fall and crumble as you clawed your way out. I'm going to power on the thermal gun here and we'll get a reading or two. Man, the thermal gun looks like the pits of hell. And this is by far the hottest one so far. Seeing a high temperature of around 140 degrees, give or take a degree or two as it is fluctuating. But it is one of the warmer vents. And obviously the closer you got down to the source, the hotter it would get. If I was to get a temperature probe and stick it down there probably 10 feet, I'd have no doubt it would top 200 degrees and then some. But this is one you can see from the road, which is just over there, and an area where snow would be around it, but not over it because it's just a constant heat source. And the steam does rise up probably at least 10 to 15 feet high. I think the camera might be having a hard time focusing with the steam. But as far as I know, this is one of the largest steam vents or fissures here at the Laurel Run mine fire area. And I'm so happy I satisfied my curiosity of what does it look like up close. I was determined, and thankfully somebody already made a more clear path. I just kind of opened it up a bit. But I said one way or the other, we're going to check it out. I'm going to get closer over there where the steam's coming out. I'm going to hold my detector over it and we'll see if we get any kind of readings. You do got to be careful here that I don't slide right into it because I'll be calling for help then. Now that we're closer, let me get another reading because the hottest part is down there. And it's pretty much the same. So the way this gun works, it has two probes. You can see there's two readers on it. It scans for hot and cold. So it shows you the hottest reading and the coldest reading, and it puts a cross over those parts. So even though I'm not physically moving the gun around, the gun is actively scanning for the hottest and coldest areas. It's all fogged up right now. This detector's been on the whole time. Obviously right here, it's perfectly fine. O2 level is fluctuating from like 20.9 to 20.5. But again, anything over 19.5 is perfectly safe. So let's get a little bit closer. I gotta make sure I don't drop this though. I'm gonna put my, there's a finger hold on it. So let's reach down here. Gotta watch I don't prick myself. I'm gonna hold it there for a few seconds and we'll see. Yeah, low oxygen, 18%. Once it clears 19.5 right there, it stops. I'm gonna hold it there a bit longer this time. I know it's gonna be loud and probably annoying to hear that. I wanna give it enough time to see if any other readings do come up, such as H2S or carbon monoxide. So I'm gonna hold it here And then I'll also see how low the oxygen does get. So when it starts beeping, I'm gonna leave it here for about 30 seconds. I have a feeling that if I was able to get it down lower, closer, it might give off some more significant readings or show more than just low oxygen. But let's check it now and see what it shows. Yeah, just low oxygen, 18%, right where I was holding it. Then once you're right up here, it gets back to 20. It's 20.2 right here, 20. Okay, it's dropping here. It's gonna go off again. Yeah, directly over the steam, it goes off. As soon as you're away from the steam, it clears right up. So that's good to know. If you ever do come across these, don't stand directly in the steam for any significant amount of time, as I already shared why. It is gonna consume the oxygen around you, but standing in the vicinity of this is perfectly fine and harmless. It's more or less a natural heat source that so far no one has been able to harness to use for any type of electricity or anything else like that, as far as I know. But I don't know. It's a strange phenomenon, to say the least, but fascinating at the same time. Well, I'm gonna get my gear put away. Oh, Jesus. Holy crap. I almost fell into a sinkhole. Oh my God. I did not see that there. My foot went about a foot into it. I gotta show you what just happened. Wow, that could have been bad. So not realizing it, I walked by before. There's actually another steam vent here, and it's really soft material. And I stepped on it, my foot went in about a foot. Wow, that scared the crap out of me. It's not as significant as that, but it's enough that the ground is soft and saturated, and there's a tiny bit of steam coming out of there. And I just stepped in the wrong spot. Thankfully, that did not open up to a much larger hole. Wow. That gave me a startle and woke me up. Jeez. I was just stating earlier, be careful walking around here. There's openings, there's crevices. Well, there's also soft spots too that could almost swallow you up. I'm exaggerating that, but honestly, that's how it starts. You step in the wrong spot, you think it's solid ground, opens right up. And that was completely unplanned. Anyways, getting back to what I was saying is I'm gonna put my gear away, get packed up. In the meantime, check out this photo montage. I'm gonna sit down here and take in the heat, warm up a bit. Honestly, it wasn't a bad day temperature wise. Upper 20s to around 30 degrees right now, which is probably the high. And I actually planned on making this video several days earlier because we did receive about a 1 to 2 inch coating of snow, I believe last weekend. But it's been really cold and windy, and it would just be miserable conditions to do this. So I had to wait until the wind calmed down. Temperatures came up a little bit, which means some of the snow is already gone. That's okay though, because as we could see, it is cold enough to see the steam. But this was such for me, a phenomenal adventure. Although I've been here before and documented it on more than one occasion, we discovered new things. The rail line that came through here, the building ruins, and that little tunnel or furnace or whatever you want to call it behind the building. That was an incredible score for me. Like I said, I had no idea that that was there. We found it together on location. The only thing I was looking for was that building, and just going behind the building, I discovered it. Which leads me to believe there's probably more out here to be discovered, which is why I have interest in following the old rail line on e-bike this spring or summer. So your feedback will determine if that's going to be a video or not. If not, I'm probably going to do it for my own curiosity. With that being said, although we've documented these steam vents before, we did it in a whole new fashion. We were able to get solid confirmation with temperature and visuals with the thermal gun, which I have done before, but I think I got better results today. More importantly, we're able to do a reading of the steam and the gases coming out of there. Now, I will say, I don't know for certainty if that is the right tool for measuring or detecting what is in this steam. It only detects those 4 things. So I'm sure there are other tools out there that are better suited for reading these gases. But that is the 4 main ones that most people do test or detect for, and we at least were able to confirm in the path of that steam and the gas, it's low oxygen. Lastly though, this almost ended on a bad note. I walked that path a couple times, not only for placing the camera where it was, but to hack away at everything and then to come back and get you guys. I walked by that path a few times with no concern. I thought it was solid ground. And on my way back, when I was saying, okay, I'm gonna put my gear away, I did notice a darker spot, but I thought, oh, it's just discoloration. And I didn't think anything of it. So I was talking to you guys, just watching where I was stepping, and I inadvertently stepped on the outskirts of that dark spot, and my foot sunk right in, probably about 6 inches. It gave me a hell of a scare, I'm not gonna lie, because there's stories out there of people just stepping into sinkholes. There's actually a story recently, excuse me for sniffling, I believe it was Western Pennsylvania just a couple months ago, of this older woman who was out looking for her cat, and she got swallowed up by a sinkhole and her life was over. It could happen like that. Now, with this area being on fire, is it more susceptible to collapse or subsidence? I really don't know. But basically anywhere that's above old mine tunnels and shafts is susceptible to collapse or subsidence, which is a large part of Pennsylvania. This whole valley here is just like a beehive or honeycomb of tunnels and shafts and fissures and vents and everything else. So there's not really any safe ground around here. With what happened, it doesn't deter me from coming back and documenting this more in the future. It just means I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. But anyways, I hope you appreciated the effort I went through. We definitely walked a good distance to basically where we started, showing you the rail line, to the main vent that we tested the gases on, showing you the old residential street, to over here. We cover a large amount of ground, got multiple readings, multiple views, and documented for the very first time here in 2025. Again, any questions I had or feedback you'd like to share, by all means, the comment section is for you guys. If you haven't seen my previous videos here, they will be linked down below, as well as a playlist for other mine-related adventures. With that being said, I have a lot of great things still planned for the winter months, so make sure you do tune back to the channel so you don't miss them, because there's going to be a few of them that I'm really excited to do, and others that may interest you as well. Anyways, I'm ready to get out of here. Make sure you get out in one piece. If this video is up and out, obviously I'm okay. Anyways, thanks very much for coming along for this adventure. And as I always tell you guys, I'm going to tell myself, stay safe, take care, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.